The observation deck of the Stellar Harmony hummed with the quiet efficiency of a ship in deep space. Katniss stood before the reinforced glass partition, watching the small creature pace restlessly in its containment unit. The Zarathi cub, no larger than a terrier but infinitely more dangerous, hadn't eaten in 3 cycles. Its obsidian scales caught the artificial light as it moved, creating patterns that would have been beautiful if not for the concerning lethargy in its movements. The specimen will perish if it continues to refuse sustenance, Velkara, the ship's Zenthari physician, observed from behind her. His 6 eyes blinked in asynchronous concern. We have offered it every protein variant in our database. Nothing stimulates its feeding response. Katniss pressed her palm against the cool glass. The cub stopped pacing and tilted its triangular head, regarding her with eyes that burned like molten copper. Zarathi were apex predators from a death world that made Earth look like a vacation resort. Their kind had nearly wiped out 2 civilizations before the Galactic Council had intervened. This cub was an orphan, its parents killed in a territorial dispute, and represented the last of its particular genetic lineage. "It's scared," Katniss said quietly. Velkara's translator implant processed her words with a skeptical chirp. Zarathi do not experience fear. They are biologically incapable of such emotions. Their neural chemistry, I don't care what the textbooks say, Katniss interrupted, keeping her voice gentle. Look at it. It's a baby in a strange place, surrounded by aliens, and its parents are gone. Of course it's scared. Neo emerged from the corridor, his boots clicking against the metal floor. The senior xenobiologist had worked with hundreds of species across dozens of systems, and his weathered face showed every year of that experience. The Council is getting impatient, Katniss. If we can't stabilize the cub, they'll terminate the conservation protocol. They'll kill it, you mean? Neo's silence was confirmation enough. Katniss turned back to the cub. It had resumed pacing, its powerful legs carrying it in tight circles. Its ribs were beginning to show through its scales, a disturbing sight on a creature bred for violence and survival. She'd seen this behavior before, years ago, in a different context, a human context. I want to go in there, she said. Velkara's translator emitted a sound that might have been a laugh or a warning klaxon. Impossible. Zarathi cubs can shear through reinforced steel at 4 weeks of age. This specimen is 6 weeks old. It would eviscerate you before the sedation fields could activate. Not if it doesn't see me as a threat. Neo stepped closer, studying her with those calculating eyes that had evaluated countless alien behaviors. What are you thinking? When I was working the refugee camps on Theta Station, we had kids who wouldn't eat. Trauma mostly. They'd seen things, lost things. Sometimes the feeding protocols, the clinical approach, it made things worse. Made them feel like specimens instead of people. The cub is not a child, Velkara insisted. No, Katniss agreed, but maybe it needs someone to show it that eating is safe, that it's okay. Neo was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Social learning behaviors, not documented in Zarathi, but their isolation protocols have made comprehensive observation impossible. He turned to Velkara. Prepare a containment suit for Katniss. Full mobility, reinforced joints, and keep the medical team on standby. 20 minutes later, Katniss stood in the airlock wearing a suit that felt like wearing a personal spacecraft. The cub's enclosure had been modified with a feeding area, a simple platform with 2 dishes. One contained the protein slurry that the Zarathi supposedly ate. The other contained something that looked unappetizingly similar, prepared for human consumption. Remember, Neo's voice crackled through her helmet. No sudden movements. Let it come to you. The inner door cycled open. Katniss stepped into the enclosure. The cub froze, its entire body coiling like a spring. Up close, even juvenile, it was a magnificent example of evolutionary perfection. Every muscle was visible beneath its scales. Every movement calculated for maximum efficiency. Its jaws could easily crush her bones, suit or no suit. Katniss sat down on the floor, cross-legged, deliberately making herself smaller. She reached for her dish and scooped up a handful of the protein paste. The cub watched, head lowered, copper eyes tracking every movement. She brought the paste to her helmet's feeding port, a small opening designed for emergency nutrition. The paste tasted like synthetic chicken mixed with cardboard, but she made a show of eating it, chewing slowly, making satisfied sounds. The cub tilted its head. Katniss took another handful. ate it with exaggerated contentment. Mmm, she hummed, loud enough for her external speakers to carry. Delicious. For 15 minutes, nothing happened. Katniss continued eating, occasionally glancing at the cub, never staring directly. In her peripheral vision, she saw it relax slightly, its coiled tension unwinding by degrees. Then, remarkably, it moved. 1 step, 2. The cub approached its own dish, muscles rippling with predatory grace. It sniffed the protein slurry, then looked at Katniss. She took another bite of her food, nodding encouragingly. The cub's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Then slowly it lowered its head and took a tentative bite. Holy stars, Neo breathed through the comm. It's working. The cub ate more, its movements becoming less cautious. Katniss continued eating alongside it, creating a rhythm, a shared experience. When the cub paused, uncertain, she'd take another bite and it would follow her lead. They finished their meals together. The cub sat back on its haunches, and for the first time since boarding the ship, it made a sound that wasn't a warning growl. A soft, almost musical chirp. Katniss smiled behind her helmet. Good baby, she whispered. Later, in the observation deck, Velkara reviewed the footage with something approaching disbelief. The Zarathi neural chemistry should not support social learning behaviors at this developmental stage. This is unprecedented. Neo leaned against the console, arms crossed, a rare smile playing at his lips. You know what I've learned in 30 years of studying alien species? We don't know nearly as much as we think we do. Life finds ways to survive that don't fit in our neat little boxes. The council will want a full report, Velkara said, still staring at the screen where the cub now slept peacefully, its stomach full for the first time in days. Katniss watched the sleeping creature through the glass. Tell them whatever you want. Tell them humans have an irrational need to mother things. Tell them we're too stupid to know when we should be afraid. She turned to face them both. Or tell them the truth, that sometimes the most advanced science in the galaxy can't compete with simple compassion. The cub stirred in its sleep, curling tighter, and in that moment it looked less like a galaxy-class predator and more like what it actually was. A child, far from home, learning to trust again. Neo placed a hand on Katniss's shoulder. You did good work today. As they left the observation deck, none of them noticed the small detail that would later become part of Zarathi conservation legend. The way the cub, even in sleep, had positioned itself facing the direction where Katniss had been sitting, as if already waiting for their next meal together.